Of the House Democrats who took part in the sit-in over guns. That's Congressman Adam Schiff of California. And you actually said you started about an hour in. This began spontaneously, and you were there for about 18 hours. But why did you all decide to end it?
We don't have a mechanism in the House for a filibuster, and this was really our equivalent. In the House, the majority controls everything. So if they don't want to have a vote because they don't want to have their members held accountable, they can deny a vote and have for years on these gun measures. It came to an end for now. We fully intend to resume where we left off if necessary to get that vote, and we're determined to plow forward until we do. It's just, I think, indefensible for the Speaker to somehow claim that this is antithetical to democracy when he won't allow his own members to have a vote on this.
But I was watching the response publicly, and it seemed that certainly people in your corner, they were starting to take notice of what happened, and as they started to get behind you, they were even using the hashtag no bill, no break. But it seems like there was a break, and it seems like it had been said by, I think, Nancy Pelosi, this is going to keep going till hell freezes over, but it seems like it was hell freezes over until vacation starts. Doesn't that send a bad message about the dedication of the issue?
Well, it certainly sends a bad message about the majority's dedication to dealing with the problem of mass gun violence, because it was the majority that decided they were going to gavel down, they were going to leave town without doing any of the unfinished business of the country, including address this problem of gun violence. So we're determined to take it up when we come back into session, so we're not talking merely among ourselves. And we intend to thwart the business of the House until we can compel a vote. And I think it really is a difficult thing for the Speaker to say that this is the people's House, we respond to what the country wants. But no, I'm not going to allow members of my own party or the other party to vote on this because we're afraid of the vote.
But the optics of saying we're determined to take this up after our vacation.
Well, that was a decision that the majority made, essentially to recess without...
Should it have been different, do you think? Is that what you're saying?
I absolutely think that the majority should have stayed in session. Whether it would be productive for House Democrats...
But I mean, Democrats decided they could have... There's nothing stopping Democrats from staying on the House floor. This was being broadcast on social media, even though the official cameras had been turned off. Why not stay? Why not say we're going to stay through our vacation because this is our commitment?
You know, that was a debate that we had and a discussion we had with our leadership. We made the decision it would be more effective, frankly, to resume this when we all return, when, frankly, there's much more pressure on the GOP to act because there are measures they want to take up. They don't want to have to answer the questions we've been raising, and we thought we'd be more effective when they return to session.
There are a lot of complaints that people have about Congress where they feel that Congress isn't in session enough and that members of Congress are very dedicated to taking their time off instead of being in Washington. Doesn't it play into that perception?
You know, that's something, frankly, that's played up whenever Congress is out of session. But frankly, from my constituents' point of view, they want to have me in my district. They want to have meetings with me, and they want me to be accessible. They don't want me spending all my time in Washington. And there's, I think, a very popular misnomer that whenever we're not voting and in session in Washington, that we're somehow on vacation. Most of us are spending that time working in our districts, going to community meetings, and being most visible to our constituents, which is something they value. But here, you know, I completely agree that when there are broad issues before the country, like gun violence, like the Zika crisis, for the majority that has a responsibility to govern, to recess with all of these things unaddressed, I think is deeply irresponsible, and I think it reflects very poorly on the Congress.
If you sort of throw up your hands, though, and say, the majority isn't going to allow us to be on the floor in regular order, so we're going to take over, and then you leave, and I hear you saying you do work at home, and certainly I understand that. Being home, talking to your constituents is very important, but when it comes to this issue on guns, are you better off being at home as individuals, or are you better off being in Washington doing something that's getting a lot of attention, maybe where you could actually bring awareness to the issue than dispersing and it goes away?
No, it's a fair strategic question, but I think the decision was made, and I think probably the right decision, that over time, frankly, the attention of the press on what we were doing on the House floor would dissipate over the recess because, frankly, the Republicans wouldn't be in town. We wouldn't be able to pressure them during the course of ordinary business. So I think it made more sense, frankly, to come back strong when we resume. rather than have a petering out of the protest during the next couple of weeks. But we intend to take this up again and fight for that vote. And I think what is most distressing to the country is if the Republicans think this is bad policy, as they say, they ought to have the guts to bring it up and vote it down. But they don't. They want to hide. And so literally in the middle of the night, last night, they ran off to their districts and left all this unfinished business.
What does it look like when you come back? Will we see this again?
We will see this again. And I don't
There
know
will
if
be another sit-in,
well, there will be, if necessary, another sit-in, yes, a continuation of this. We are insisting on getting votes on this, and we think that the majority's position is really indefensible. And what we have done is we have raised the cost to them of inaction. Right now, and up until this point, they could fail to act. They could have their routine moments of silence after every mass shooting and then do nothing. They know that doing nothing now will not go unnoticed, that we will call the nation's attention to it, and they're going to have to deal with this.
This is a bill about keeping those who are on the no-fly list or the terrorist watch list from purchasing firearms, something that about 9 in 10 Americans support, including the vast majority of Republicans. We'll be talking a lot more about that and why Congress isn't acting on this issue after a quick break. Congressman Adam Schiff of California talking about the end of the Democrats' sit-in to protest inaction on gun violence legislation. So looking at that, talking about I guess where Congress is going to go on this, because the polls are staggering when you're talking about almost 9 out of 10 Americans, and that includes Republicans who agree with keeping people who are on the no-fly list, on the terrorist watch list, from purchasing weapons. But you actually feel that there could be some movement on guns, which I find surprising. Why do you think that?
You know, there's a broadly held sense within the Democratic caucus that this time really feels different in a way that even Newtown didn't, in the sense we're hearing from our constituents and a lot of other people around the country who suddenly want to really engage on the issue. They want something done. They're deeply fed up. They're deeply worried. And this just feels like one of those tipping points. And as you say, there are a few issues that are contentious like this, where 90% of the public is on one side. That is almost an insurmountable level of public opinion for even the NRA. But whenever you find a big gulf between what the public wants and what the public gets out of Congress, you can usually find a very powerful special interest at the heart of it. And here, this is the NRA. And I think there's a real conviction that if the NRA can be beaten on this issue, they can be beaten on other issues like universal background checks. And so there's a seminal significance to this issue of keeping people on the no-fly list from being able to buy weapons.
I want to talk to you now about some of the other inaction that we've seen, which was the Supreme Court today splitting on whether to uphold President Obama's executive action on immigration reform. It means a lower court now has the say, and they say that he shouldn't have gone as far as he did. Today I heard President Obama saying that people should be mobilized by this, they should be alarmed by it, but then he also seemed to say, don't worry too much, this isn't completely eviscerating my plans. So which is it?
Well, it's a tremendous setback. I think for millions of people around the country, it puts a big shadow over their continued livelihood, their ability to stay with their families. So I think it's a tremendous setback. But it also shows the significance of leaving this Supreme Court seat vacant, which is among the most irresponsible acts of the Congress in recent memory. This is a co-equal branch of government, and we're treating it like some judicial backwater that is a political plaything. It's really unthinkable, and every day now when the court issues an opinion, we see the deep consequences, but it will also raise the stakes again in the presidential election because it will be determinative issues like this one, whether those kind of executive orders can go forward.
Congressman Schiff, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.